Om Sada Shiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Pariyantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karvavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Mavidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So we will continue with where we left off. We are on the 12th mantra, first chapter, second section. So let us chant together. I will lead and you can chant with me. Pariksha lokan karmachitan brahmanaha
परीक्ष्य
लोकान् कर्मचितान् ब्राह्मणः
निर्वेदम आयान नास्त्य कृतकृतेन
निर्वेदम् आयान्नाकृतेन
तद विज्ञानार्थम स गुरुमेवाभिगच्छेत्
तद्विज्ञानार्थं स गुरुमेवाभिगच्छेत्
समित्पाणि श्रोत्रियं ब्रह्मनिष्ठम्
समित्पाणोत्रियं ब्रह्मनिष्ठम्.
Okay, so I'm just meeting you. A very, very important mantra. So first, just let me give you the word meanings, the simple running meaning. Pariksha lokan, the seeker, the advanced seeker. Lokan pariksha. Lokan is the worlds, lokaha is the worlds. Pariksha, pariksha is to examine. So having examined the worlds, karma chitan. So karma chita is what is achieved through karma, what is achieved through action. So Brahmanaha, the seeker, the intelligent seeker, pariksha lokan karma chitan, having examined the lokas and the karmas in the lokas and the karma chitan, having understood what he gains through karma, what does he do? Ayat nirvedam. Nirvedam should come. Nirvedam is dispassion. So nirvedam should arise. Dispassion should arise. Why? Because now he has got an understanding. Akritaha. Akritaha means that which cannot be produced through karma. And akritaha here is used in the meaning of moksha. So akritaha here is moksha. It is an appropriate word because moksha cannot be produced through karma. So akritaha. The unproduced moksha, the non-producible moksha, kritena na asti. It is not possible through karma. So this is the understanding that he has, that it is not possible to gain moksha through any karma, and therefore, therefore, what does he do? Vijnana artham. For the purpose of achieving knowledge, vijnanam, sa eva, he himself must necessarily abhigachet, approach. Who? Gurum. He has to approach a teacher, samit panihi, with the samit in his hand. And what kind of a guru is he? Shrotriyam brahmanishtam. A person who is Shrotriyam, who has learnt the Vedas, who has studied the scriptures, and Brahmanishtam is very important, who has established, who knows that he is Brahman, who remembers all the time that he is Brahman. So very, very important mantra. So we'll do it in some detail. So this seeker understands that Apara Vidya has got limitations. Now when we say that Apara Vidya has got limitations, remember we are not discarding Apara Vidya. We are not rejecting Apara Vidya. Because Aparavidya has a very important role as the stepping stone, as the means of giving Chitta Shuddhi. Aparavidya cannot be replaced. It is absolutely necessary. But of course, you have to understand that Aparavidya is the first step, which helps me to reach Paravidya. But if I treat Aparavidya as a end in itself, then that is a failure on my part. And therefore, Aparavidya should be used as a stepping stone to reach Paravidya. Without karma, therefore, Chitta Shuddhi is not possible. Without Chitta Shuddhi, Jnanam will not function. Without Jnanam, karma itself has not achieved its goal. So it's a circle. Karma to be successfully, to say that our karma has been successful, Chitta Shuddhi should have been there. And if Chitta Shuddhi is not there, then Jnanam is not possible. Without Jnanam, Moksha is not possible. And therefore, ultimately, without Moksha, if you have not been able to get Moksha, every karma in your life has failed. Because the very purpose has not been achieved. And therefore, my aim is to enter into karma, into Aparavidya, grow. Growing means understand the limitations of Aparavidya, get dispassion, and therefore grow out of Aparavidya. Right? So it's a tool. It's like the pole vaulter, you know. What is the comparison of the pole vaulter with the sadhaka? I mean, two different things altogether. What is the similarity?
He has to finally drop the pole to make
Yes.
the jump.
Correct. The pole vaulter needs the pole to get to the top, but to go over the top, he can't be holding the pole. He has to let go the pole, and therefore you need karma to get to Chitta Shuddhi, to get to Jnanam. But once you reach there, you have to let go of karma. You cannot keep on holding on to it. And therefore, you need Aparavidya until the time that you attain Chitta Shuddhi, Jnana Yogyata, which we also call Sadhana Chatushtaya Sampatti. So the trick is what? To use Aparavidya without getting attached to Aparavidya. And this methodology, this mindset, where I can continue to use Aparavidya, but keeping my Paravidya objective in mind so that I don't get attached to Aparavidya. This is known as Karma Yoga. Okay. Now, all this background, of course, the Upanishad does not explain because it presumes that you have gone through all this in your Tattva Bodha and the Bhagavad Gita and whatnot. And therefore, it doesn't touch upon this. And Karma Yoga, it must be remembered. What is the definition of Karma Yoga? Ishvara Arpana Bhavana, Ishvara Prasada Buddhi, which means I do all my karma as an offering to Ishvara, Ishvara Arpana Bhavana. And whatever phalam I get, karma phalam I get, I receive it as the grace of Ishvara. Therefore, I have Ishvara Prasada Buddhi. And because of these two attitudes, the karma as well as the karma phalam, they won't cause any emotional disturbance to me. Remember that if you dislike karma, you get mental disturbance. Because the bhokta gets mental disturbance when he dislikes the phalam. The only way, so the karta gets mental disturbance when he dislikes karma, the bhokta gets mental disturbance when he dislikes the phalam. The only way to be free of these disturbances is to associate both with Ishvara. The person who follows Karma Yoga has been called Brahmanaha in this mantra. So Sattva Guna Pradhana Vaidika is called Brahmanaha. The person who is predominant in Sattva Guna and also a Vedic student. So Sattva Guna Pradhana Vaidika. He is called a Brahmanaha. And in this Brahmana's mind, there is no disturbance for karma There is no dislike for karma or dislike for the phalam. And therefore, while doing karma or while receiving phalam, the disturbances are very minimal in his mind. Why are we so bothered about disturbances of the mind? Because where the mind is disturbed, I cannot learn from my experiences. Because a mind which is reactive, which is undergoing disturbance, cannot focus on learning. But a non-reactive mind, a mind which is accepted the fact that karma is there, karma phalam is there, and both are associated with Ishvara, that mind understands that by blaming the world, I am not going to achieve anything. By blaming the world, basically I succeed only in magnifying my own problems. And therefore this sadhaka, brahmana, he has only one question to ask in every experience. What can I learn from this experience? Right? Remember that a lot of people think that they can increase or they can improve the world. But we have to remember that in the entire world, there is only one part which I can improve, and that part is my part. And so Shastra says, do karma yoga, do parihara karma, reduce parihara karma, reduce kamya karma, increase pancha mahayagna. All this is proper action plus proper attitude, which we call karma yoga. With that, it can toughen your mind. And once the mind is toughened, even when your mind is mildly disturbed, you will understand that that disturbance of the mind is not due to somebody else's behavior. Right? Why does my mind get disturbed when somebody doesn't behave according to what I want? Because I have certain expectation from that person. And that expectation is because I want to live my life in a particular manner. And whenever that person does something which does not meet that expectation, then my mind gets disturbed. But just as I have a particular expectation on the way I want to live my life, I should realize that others also have the same expectation. They have the right to live the life as they want to. And therefore, I cannot control the behavior of others. The only thing I can do is to work on my expectations and give them up. That's the simple background. Okay. And therefore, the Upanishad says that any karma can produce what? Three results: artha, kama, dharma. And that is why moksha was called akritaha, not produced through karma. Now, any karma phalam, that is either broadly either artha or kama or dharma, it has got threefold defects, trivida dosha. We saw this earlier. Dukkha mishritatvam, atripti karatvam, bandha tatvam. Everybody knows what these three things mean. If you don't,
Yes, Acharya.
well, I'm assuming that everybody knows because nobody is saying no. Okay. So every karma has got three inherent defects. Trivida dosha, we call it. Dukkha mishritatvam, atripti karatvam, and bandakatvam. So as I go through life, I go through various experiences, and in every experience, I find that these three defects are present. Therefore, if I have to learn, I have to have an undisturbed mind. And that is why the Upanishad says here, Pariksha lokan karma chitan. Pariksha. Pariksha means examination, right? Pariksha. May you analyze. May you examine using your intellect, right? And what is the result of any karma? May you examine properly. try to understand the sambandha, the connection between karma and karma phalam. And from that, I should understand that in the past, I have done karma and I have got karma phalam of a certain kind. What will happen if again I do karma? The same means you use cannot give you different ends. And therefore, any amount of karma can only result in finite karma phalam which I have got in the past. Therefore, the understanding is that karma cannot give any result apart from karma phalam, which is finite. Right? And you don't need to understand, to do all the karma in the world to understand. The sharper your buddhi is, the more quickly you will learn this lesson. And therefore, lokan karmachitan, analyze the world and the karma in this world. With karma is there, karma phalam is there. With upasana, it's also one form of karma, upasana phalam is there. Karma chita is that which is acquired by karma, as a result of karma, gathered by karma. So whatever you acquire through karma is karma chita. And I should also analyze and understand that in the past, when I have done some karma, I had acquired something. Is that thing still there with me? Has it decayed? Has it got destroyed? And therefore, I should impress in my buddhi that whatever is acquired in time will be lost or destroyed in time. And therefore, I come to the conclusion all karma phalam is anityam, including swarga, heaven is anityam, including naraka, hell is anityam. All the karma rituals, the karma contained in Rig Veda, etc., they are all part of aparavidya. And they are all angas. They are all angas, parts, prescribed for whom? The one who is not mature. Right? And therefore, these are the rituals contained in the Veda Purva, in the Karma Kanda, are not for the mature person. And who is the mature person? Shankara defined. Who is the immature person? Shankara defines very nicely. Svabhavika avidya kama karma doshavat. The person to whom avidya is ignorance, ajnanam, kamaha, desire, karmaha, action, is what? Swabhavika, is natural to them. So a person who is ajnani, for them, ajnani means, in this case, also has to be taken as not ready for jnanam, who has not got the sufficient amount of chitta shuddhi. So for him, these three, ajnanam, kama and karma, they are natural. And therefore, the Veda Purva is meant for them. What does Veda Purva arise? What prescribe? Karma and upasana. So what Shankara is saying that if you have not matured, if you have not got chitta shuddhi, then karma kanda is very much necessary for you. Because karma kanda contains karma and upasana. Now, when you say that Shankara says karma kanda is meant for immature people, a lot of people will get offended. Because most of the Vedikas, people who follow the Vedas, most of them follow what? The karma kanda. And anywhere you see, today's world you see, in the spiritual world, okay? I'm not talking about the materialistic world where everything is looked down upon. In the spiritual world, you see, a religious person is considered a very noble person and very mature person. Why? Because you talk in society, you say, oh, that man goes to, he goes to temples every day, he does puja once in a week, he does parayanam daily, he does meditation daily, all this. The person is a very noble person. And yet, here Shankara says that person is immature. Okay. What is the reason? Because here we remember here that when we are talking about karma, we are talking about nitya naimitika karma. What is the very basis of nitya naimitika karma? I hope you know what nitya karma and naimitika karma is. What is nitya karma?
Daily duties.
Prescribed where?
The Shastra mandated daily duties.
Shastram prescribes two types of duties. One is regular daily duties, nitya karma. For example, your Agnihotram. One is naimittika karma. What is naimittika karma? Also prescribed in Shastram.
The occasional ones like marriage and
Occasional
Yes.
duties. So Shastra says that when there is a marriage, you have to attend. When there is a death, you have to attend. So duties occasioned by some sort of event. That is called naimittika karma. And this nitya karma and naimittika karma, remember, they are based on the varna and ashrama division. So any Vaidika karma, any prescription of karma in the Veda is always prescribed for a particular varna, for a particular ashrama. And therefore, without the varna ashrama dharma, no Vaidika karma can strictly be practiced. No upasana can really be done without varnashrama dharma. What is the proof of this? The daily proof. Whenever you go to a temple to make an offering, what is the first question the priest asks you?
Gotra.
Asks you, what's your nakshatra, what's your rashi, what's your gotra, right? All related to what? Your varnashrama dharma. And therefore, Shankara is saying that any Vaidika karma you do, which means you are a follower of karma kanda, what are you doing? You are identifying with varna, you are identifying with ashrama. Varna, ashrama are basically identifications of the body. And if you identify with the varna, ashrama, you are identifying with the body. And therefore, are you jnani or ajnani? What are you? You are a ajnani because you are identifying with the body. You do not know aham brahma asmi, therefore you are immature. So that's the meaning of Shankara saying that karma kanda is for immature people. You are not looking down upon karma kanda. You are saying that karma kanda is necessary, but for a beginner. For a person who has not got chitta shuddhi, karma kanda is necessary. Jnana kanda, you are not ready for. And therefore, mantra says, pariksha, examine everything that is available through karma. And Shankara here adds one very important word, karma anushtanam. Anushtanam means performance. So you should understand these small, insertions. The mantra says, examine karma. But Shankara says, you examine karma performance. Why? Remember that unlike jnanam and karma have a very, very important difference. Karma will not give you result unless it is performed. Mere knowledge of a particular karma will not get you the result, right? Agnihotram gives punyam. Mere knowledge of Agnihotram, how to do the Agnihotram, that is not going to give you the punyam. You have to perform. And that's why Shankara says performance of the karma. In the case of jnanam, what happens? The knowledge itself is the fruit. Knowing that I am Brahman, that itself is the fruit. No further action is required. no further study is required. Therefore, Anushtanam word is important because it is the performance of karma that results in the benefit, not the knowledge of the karma. Then Lokaha, Shankara defines. Lokaha is where? Pariksha Lokan. Shankara says, Loka can mean a field of experience. And there are three types of lokas. One attained through Shukla Gati, one attained through Krishna Gati, one attained through Adhogati. So this we discussed sometime. Shukla Gati is what? You attain the higher worlds. Right? Krishna Gati is what? You attain little higher worlds, but not completely. Adhogati is what? You get the lower worlds. Therefore, Shankara says here, we are talking about Krishna Marga alone. What is the difference between Krishna Marga and Shukla Marga? Out of the, I think I had the discussion somewhere else. Out of the 6 higher worlds, Shukla Gati gets you where?
To the Brahma Loka.
To Brahma Loka.
Brahmaloka.
Krishna Gati gets you to the other lokas, other higher lokas. Right. The difference is that for traveling through Shukla Gati, you need karma plus upasanas. And therefore, when you say Shukla Gati and Krishna Gati, you are indicating all the higher lokas, all the 6 higher lokas. And Shankara adds, but these lokas basically are obtained through apara vidya only. Because loka is in samsara. And therefore, going anywhere in samsara is not moksha. It's a result of apara vidya only. What about the lower lokas? So Shankara says, Vihita Akarana. It is the lower lokas are gained, or you go to the lower lokas, I won't say gained. You go to the lower lokas because Vihita Karma, mandatory karma, is Akarana, not performed. So omission of mandatory karma gives you a papam called Pratyavaya papam. That Pratyavaya papam is the cause of going to lower lokas. Also, he says, Pratisheda Atikrama. Atikrama basically means violation. Pratisheda means prohibited. And therefore, violation of prohibition or prohibited karma, which means committing prohibited karma, that will take you to a lower worlds. Okay, so these are all adjectives to the Lokaha world, the word Lokaha. The various types of actions which you do, which will take you to the worlds, are being mentioned over here. And Shankara adds Naraka. Naraka means hell. And that hell can mean not only just another loka or lower loka, but he says in the word Naraka, you should take as included rebirth in the same world, rebirth in our world only, in Bhuloka only, but in lower bodies, so animal bodies and, Preta, Bhut, all those bodies, they should be taken as lower births, even though they are in the same loka. And hence, you should pariksha, examine. Now, pariksha is a very, very important word. It is not enough to see. Seeing something is not enough. One must understand, one must observe, and if you understand and observe what you have seen, then only will you draw the correct conclusion. Right? So Shankara comments here, Pariksha Pratyaksha Anumana Upamana Agamai. What are they? Pariksha means examine. Examine with Pratyaksha Anumana Upamana Agamai. Examine with Pratyaksha Pramanam, perception. Examine with Anumana Pramanam, inference. Examine with Upamana Pramanam, comparison. Examine with Agama, which is your scriptural Pramanam, Shastra Pramanam. Examine the Loka, the Karma Phala in the Loka. examine it using all the pramanams available to you. Why is so much of emphasis being given here? Because you have to get the correct meaning. The idea is that two people can see the same thing, but they may draw totally different conclusions. There is a story, I don't know if you have heard. Sherlock Holmes, right? Sherlock Holmes, the great detective. So Sherlock Holmes was known for what? Anumanam. He used to get the correct inference after saying something. So Pratyaksham was common to both Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson, who was his assistant, right? They always went together. So what would happen is they would see the same thing, but Watson would draw one conclusion and Sherlock Holmes would draw another Anumanam, completely different conclusion. So the story is that Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson went camping, right? And the night comes and they go to sleep. Somewhere in the middle of the night, both of them wake up and they see a beautiful sky with stars, moon, very, very clear sky, right? So Sherlock asks, Doctor, what do you see? And Dr. Watson goes into a description of the night sky, the beauty, and the moon, and says it's a very clear sky and it's such a beautiful night. It is unlikely to rain. It's a long description he gives. And then Sherlock keeps quiet. So Dr. Watson asks, Sherlock, what do you see? So Sherlock says, you see, Dr. Watson, but you do not observe. And Watson says, for heaven's sake, Sherlock, what do you observe? And Sherlock says, I observe that somebody has stolen our tent. You get the meaning? When you open your eyes, the tent should have been there, right? So both saw the same thing. Both saw the sky. But Watson arrived at the wrong meaning and Sherlock arrived at the correct meaning. Okay. So the idea is see, observe, draw the right conclusion. And what is the right conclusion here? These karma phalams are of no use to you. And so Shankara says, leave these karma phalams behind you. They are of no value to a sadhaka. And therefore only Brahmanaha nirvedamayat nasti akritaha kritena. Brahmanavaha nirvedamayat. The Brahmana gets detachment, vairagyam. Nirvedam means vairagyam. Vairagyam comes from where? From viveka. The moment you have viveka, vairagyam falls into place, and therefore nirvedam represents, in Tattvabodha terms, sadhana chatushtaya sampatti. That Brahmanaha, because of his examination of karma, right? What happens to him? He becomes a sadhana chatushtaya sampanna. And therefore you can see how important your Tattvabodha is. Everywhere the concepts that we have got in Tattvabodha, they are being repeated again and again. So this Brahmana, he gets Nirvedam. What kind of Brahmana is this? He necessarily has to be a Guna Brahmana, not a Jati Brahmana. And a Guna Brahmana is a Guna Brahmana because he takes the Veda as his Pramana. What is the indication for this Nirvedam? Your chasing after worldly material gains will come down. Your chasing after artha kama dharma will come down, and you will begin to ask, is there a nirdosha purushartha? Because artha kama dharma have got doshams, and I am not interested in those doshams, and therefore is there a nirdesha purushartha is the question you will ask. That is a sign of sadhana chatushtaya sampanna. So that is called, what is that purushartha? It's called moksha. You remember from Gita, Nirdoshami param brahma tasmad brahmani sthitaha. Says Krishna. Param brahma is nirdosham. The Brahma Tattvam is nirdosham. That Purushartha moksha is nirdosham, without defect. And this is not available in Aparavidya. Therefore, you have to come to Paravidya, to Jnanakanda, because you understood akritaha kritena nasti. Moksha akritaha is not possible through karma and upasana. And therefore, an analysis of the entire experiences of our life is to be done. Ideally, of course, you should do it as and when it happens, right? But it's not too late. You can look at all your life experiences throughout your life. What do you find? Artha, Kama, Dharma are Purusharthas, all right, but they are Sadosha, with dosha. And doshas are Tridosha, Dukkha Mishritatvam, Atriptikaratvam, Bandhakatvam. And therefore, this Brahmanaha, this Sadakaha, he realizes that by following Artha, Kama, Dharma, I will never be able to come to land up at Nirdosha Purushartha because of all these three defects. All phalams are temporary. And Shankara adds one very beautiful line here. He says, Yadyat karma phalam tat tad anityam shariravat. Which means, Yadyat karma phalam, wherever there is karma phalam, tat tad anityam. All that karma phalam is anityam, temporary. Like what? Shariravati, like the body. So karma phalam is all, body is the example, shariram is the example. Shariram is also karma. This is a typical statement in Shastra. Okay, they'll give the reason, they'll give a statement and they'll say this is the action, this is the result, and they'll give an example. So this is typical. Yadyat karma phalam tad tat anityam shariravate. So all karma phalam is temporary, like the body. What does it mean? Body is also karma phalam, born from prarabdha karma. When the prarabdha karma is exhausted, the body will no longer exist. And therefore, karma is finite and can produce only finite results. Then Shankara adds here, Chaturvidham eva sarvam karma karyam. Results of karma are Chaturvidham. Any result of karma can be classified into four. Now we have talked about this four results that karma can have. In the past we have talked about it, but I have not given you the source. So this is the source. This is where you find the source. This Bhashyam on Mundaka Upanishad is the source of that teaching that karma can be classified into four. Karma phalam can be classified into four. What are they? We already discussed. I'll very briefly repeat. Utpadyam. Karma can result, karma phalam can be produced by karma. Utpadyam. So a karma phalam can be produced in time and space. Then apyam, that which can be reached or obtained. For example, Swarga. So Punya karma phalam is Swarga prapti. So apyam, that karma phalam enables you to reach Swarga. Then vikaryam. Vikaryam is change or modification. For example, when milk turns into curds, it's vikaryam. And samskaryam is purification. So anything which you purify, that is samskaryam. That requires karma. So the results of karma, any karma you do, can be broadly classified into one of these four. Utpadyam, apyam, vikaryam, samskaryam. Right? Samskaram, remember, is purification. That is why they have 41 samskaras for a Vedika's life, and marriage is also considered a samskara. So these are the four types of karma phalam. And of course, they are all temporary. They are all anityam. So Shankara is saying that out of any karma phalam that you can think of, other than these four, there can be no other result. And because of that, you examine whether moksha is utpadyam, apyam, vikaryam, samskaryam, you will find that moksha cannot be classified under any of these four. And therefore, what is the conclusion? Moksha cannot be a result of karma. So this is the conclusion drawn from pariksha analysis. And this conclusion, in short, we have already seen in Tattvabodha in three simple words: Nitya, Anitya, Vivekaha. So you'll observe that we are in different words, different examples, different language. We are going on saying the same thing. Like Tattvabodha, what we said, we are still saying. And that's why we keep on saying that Tattvabodha, a very, very basic text, you should read as many times as possible or listen to the classes. Okay. Now, having understood that moksha is not the result of karma, the Pariksha Lokan conclusion is that nasti akritya kritena. You cannot get moksha karma. Therefore, what should I do? There is only one pramanam for moksha, and that is Shastra. And therefore, I have to look into Shastram. And the moment I say I have to look into Shastram, Shastram is in the form of words. And traditionally, those words have to come to me from a teacher. So remember that Shastram is outside me, teacher is outside me. So the question here is, how can two things which are outside me give me moksha which is inside me? The doubt can arise, right? How can something which is outside me give me something which is inside me? To understand this, you have to look at the method in which a pramanam, a source of knowledge, operates. Take, for example, the eyes, right? Now, I'm in a park, let us say. Children are playing there, a lot of stuff is going on. I'm in a park. To use my eyes, there is the initial portion of the operation requires my free will. Sve ichha. What is that?
To look at the object,
Look at
open
the
my
object,
eyes and look at
open
the
my
object.
eyes.
Yeah.
So opening your eyes and keeping your mind behind you, very important, okay? Because keeping them, I am presuming here that everybody knows that for a pramanam to be operative, the mind has to be behind the eyes. The support of the mind is important for any pramanam to operate. So we are not talking about looking, but your mind is somewhere else. So you are opening your eyes, which is an action born of your swecha, your free will. That is requiring your free will, and your mind is behind you. Once the eyes begin its operation, which means once the pramanam begin its operations, okay, another thing we are presuming is that the eyes are healthy, right? Capable. And of course, the mind is available. So once your eyes are open, remember that your free will has no role to play. If your mind is behind your eye, then the eye will report to you whatever is there in the field of vision, right? Whether it is a boy or a girl or somebody playing or a tree or a dog or a cow, you have no control over what the eye shows you. There is no question now. After the eyes have started to operate, there is no question of deciding to see or not to see. That question was there before I operated the pramanam. So this is a very important point, that using the pramanam requires an act of free will. Once the pramanam is in operation, your free will is suspended, right? The same thing applies to the ears, which is also a pramanam, right? The problem is the eyes are internal to me. Right? So is my ear. And therefore, I don't take the eyes as external to me. However, what is the logic? When something is internal to me, I don't question what it sees. I don't question what the eyes are seeing because pramanam is internal to me. I don't question what I hear because the ears are internal to me. But in this case, in the case of Shastra Pramanam, the Shastra is external to you, the Acharya is external to you, and therefore it requires a very clear understanding of how it works. You have to understand the process is identical. Just as once the eyes are open, your will is suspended. When Shastra Pramanam begins to operate, so here don't get confused. Eyes are Pramanam, Shastra is Pramanam. And that is the parallel that I'm drawing. When the eyes are required to be opened, you need your will. When you need to listen to Shastra Pramanam, you need your willpower to come to the class, to switch on the laptop or go to the class where the teacher is teaching. Once you have sat down, the parallel is the same as once the eyes are open. Once the eyes are open, the will is suspended. Once you have sat down to listen, which means once Shastra Pramanam begins to operate, which means when your teacher starts to teach, when the Acharya starts to teach, the Pramanam has begun to operate. Then the suspension of will is required. And that is why in Tattvabodha we said, Shraddha is Guru Vedanta Vakya Vishwasaha. Right? Shraddha means faith in the Guru and the Shastra. Why do we say this? Because Shastram and Acharya are both outside you. Since the words are coming from an external source, therefore your intellect, intellectual defenses, if you want to call it, criticizing, doubting, they are all operational. You don't do that when you see something through your eyes, because the eyes are internal to you. But you have to understand that just as eyes are pramanam, Shastram is also pramanam. And therefore, just as you trust your eyes without criticism, without doubting, that trust is required in the Shastra Pramanam, which means my will has to stop operating. Right? Suspension of will is required. Otherwise, subjectivity comes into the picture. So one example you can take is the Rajju Sarpaha. This, you see a rope in the dim light. What do you see? A snake. Because that fear has invoked what? Has invoked the ahankara, the RC. The moment the RC comes in, subjectivity comes in. And therefore, if you are scientifically minded, you will be more objective. You will see a shadowy object lying in the road, and you will be willing to go and see with a torchlight to investigate. Therefore, what I am saying is that in the operation of any pramanam, there are two types of results. One result comes with the use of your will, which is any performance of any karma. You have to use the will. So in the performance of any karma, the use of the will is a must. In the pramanam with jnanam, the suspension of the will is a must. In karma, the will has to necessarily remain active until the karma is over, and the result will be in the form of whatever karma phalam is the result of that karma. When the will is suspended, the result is in the form of pramana phalam, the jnana phalam. That jnana phalam can arise only if the will is suspended. It is for this reason that we say that focus on the words only. Your will requires to be deliberately suspended during Shravanam. And Shankara, of course, in his commentary on the Brahma Sutras, says that Jnanam is Vastu Tantram, that is focused, centered on the object, and not kartrutantram, not centered on the knower, on the doer, the ahankara. Ahankara means will. The simple words of Shankara saying vastutantram, nahi kartrutantram means jnanam arises out of the ahankara being suspended, the will being suspended. The reason is that jnanam and the object of jnanam are exactly the same. They cannot be different. If I know from my pramanam about an apple, and then I discover that what I know from my pramanam is different from the actual apple, then there is a pramana dosha, right? And what is the vastu here? The vastu is Atman. And what is the revelation? Shastram reveals the Atman to be not different from Brahman. Then you might ask, if Atman is one, if Shastram is revealing the Atman to be Brahman, how come so many darshanas have so many ideas? Atman is one, Atman is many, Atman is karta, Atman is akarta, Atman is karta but not bhokta, Atman is bhokta but not karta. All sort of interpretations are there. Which means what? It's like what you know from your pramanam being different from the object. What I know about the apple from my pramanam, if it is different from the actual apple, there is a pramana dosha. And therefore, if people have different ideas about Atman, Brahman, etc., then there is a pramana dosha somewhere. The understanding of pramanam has not been properly understood. So, Shastra is conveyed, Shastra has to be understood as in exactly the same manner as it wishes to convey. And therefore, the teacher is essential. Otherwise, all your reading, if you're reading Shastram, is colored by your intellect, right? Your willpower is in play. And therefore, the teacher is essential. And what should he teach? He should remember that all karma gives temporary phalam only. Karma is done through exercise of willpower. Therefore, moksha cannot be achieved through exercise of willpower. For accomplishing moksha, you have to suspend it. You have to not use your willpower, which can only be pramana phalam, which can only be jnana phalam. So what can I do? I have to make myself ready for jnana. So pariksha. One understands that one is looking for pramana phalam and not karma phalam. And therefore one has to come to jnanam for moksha. What is the connection between jnanam and moksha? It is a sadhana, sadhya, sambandha. It is the discipline, sadhanam. The discipline which you follow, the sadhyam is what you get out of the discipline. So jnanam, moksha have got a sadhana, sadhya, sambandha. If there is jnanam, there will be moksha. It follows automatically. Sadhya follows sadhana without any further action required, without any action being required at all. And if this connection of sadhana, sadhya, sambandha between jnanam and moksha is not clear, then I will have all sort of doubts and I will say I need to experience Brahman, etc. Right? If one needs to get jnanam, one has to come to Shastram. There is no other way, because between Shastram and jnanam, there is the revealed connection, which we saw earlier. Pratipadaka, Pratipadya Sambandha is there. The revealer is the Shastram, the revealed is Brahman, which is Jnanam. And what is a Pramanam? So Shankara defines Anadhigata, Abadhita, Phalavat, Artha Bodhakam Pramanam. What does it do? Phalavat, Artha Bodhakam. It produces fruitful knowledge, knowledge which is useful to us. And that knowledge, anadhigataha, is not available from any other pramanam. Abhaditaha is not subject to negation by any other pramanam. and therefore it produced abhadita jnanam, knowledge which can never be negated by any pramanam at all. And we'll conclude by simply saying, what are the statements made in the Vedas? There are three types of statements. So I'm saying this because we don't come across this very often, and it's worthwhile remembering. The Vedic statements are of three types. One is guna arthavada, a statement which goes against your perception, right? Anuvada, a statement which is in harmony with your perception. Your perception proves the statement. And bhutarthavada. Bhutarthavada is not being capable of being proved by perception or logic, right? So one goes against perception, gunarthavada. One goes along with perception, anuvada. One is not capable of being proved by perception or logic. We take this as true because it is Shastram only. So for example, Tattvamasi. It is Bhutarthavada. Right? Bhutarthavada is, you will not be able to prove it through perception. You will not be able to prove it through logic. The only way you can understand that statement is to accept the Veda as Pramanam and believe in it. Of course, if the Vedic statement contradicts logic, you can reject it. But it cannot be proved by logic. At the same time, it is not illogical. There's a big difference, right? So when you say go to Swarga, that cannot be proved by logic, but it doesn't contradict any logic. But when you say I go to Swarga and I remain eternally there, that is contradicting the logic, because logic says that going to Swarga is the outcome of Punyam, and Punyam is limited, and therefore you cannot remain eternally in Swarga. So that is a contradiction of logic. And therefore, Shankara says, the mantra says, Tad vijnanartham gurumeva vigachet. Tad, that person, for the acquiring the knowledge, that person who is the adhikari, a sadhana chatushta sampannaha, what must he do? He must go to a teacher, because there are so many doubts in Vedanta. And Shankara here makes a very important statement. Shastragnya api swatantrena brahma anveshanam na kuryat. Shastragnya, even the very learned man who knows, who has read the Shastra, who knows grammar, who knows logic, who knows chanda, everything he knows. Api, even he, swatantrena, on his own, independently, brahma anveshanam na kuryat. He should not inquire into Brahman on his own. He should go to a teacher. How? Samit panihi. With samit. Samit is twigs from the peepal tree. So Ashwatha tree. Ashwatha tree in his hand. And that twigs from that peepal tree, he should take dried twigs, of course, not wet ones. And that twigs indicate that traditionally that I am willing to be of service to the teacher, because the twigs are meant for the homums. The idea being that basically you should not go to a teacher empty-handed. And Shrotriyam and Brahmanishram. Shrotriyam is the one who has studied the Veda. Study the Veda means he knows the Sampradaya, the methodology of teaching he knows. So the mantra is being clear, Acharya is being clear that he will teach only what Shruti teaches. Shrotriyam means what? He has learned from Veda. Therefore, he should teach only what Veda teaches. There should be no personal interpretations of his own, and therefore the parampara is kept pure. Of course, one more additional thing we can add, the teacher should be willing to teach. And for the Shrotriya, there is no reason not to teach if asked for by Adhikari. Okay. One more thing is, he should know how to unfold this teaching. This special method of unfolding was referred to in Bhagavad Gita also. It's called the Sampradaya. The special method is needed because usually when we learn, the first thing we do is what we learn about, we convert into an object. I am there, I am learning about the object. That is a normal way of gaining knowledge. what happens? I form a concept. It's an object orientation. And that object orientation is a huge block. It is, in fact, the biggest block in my spiritual pursuit, because whenever the teacher talks about Brahman, I will try to visualize it as an object, and that I will fail, because Brahman is not an object. Brahman is a subject itself, and therefore the Acharya must take care of this blunder by pointing this out and showing that there can be never any Brahma Anubhava. There can be never any Brahman experience. And for this, various methods are used by Upanishads. And this method of communication also you should know. And therefore, you are a Shrotriya. That is not all. He should also be Brahmanistha. He should know. He should have got the phalam from his jnanam. He should know that he is not different from Brahman. Right? Now the question is, it is easy to say that teacher should be Brahmanistha. How do I understand if the teacher is Brahmanistha? Because if I can make out that teacher is Brahmanistha, then I am Brahmanistha. I don't need the teaching. So how do I know whether teacher is Brahmanistha? So Shankara says, he provides the clue. This person, he has given up all actions. Hitva sarvakarmani kevala advaya brahmani nishtha. He has given up all actions. He is committed to the non-dual Brahman only. Right? That is the person who can never be addicted to karma. Person who is addicted to karma can never be Brahmanistha, because karma is opposed to Atmajnanam. And therefore, Shrotriya Brahmanishtam is the Uttama Guru, the best Guru. Then there is a Madhyama Guru who has knowledge but does not know how to communicate. And they are called mystics, because every statement they make is very mysterious to us. Right? So they are called mystics. They have jnanam. They may be Brahmanishtam, but they are not Shrotriyam. Then there are others who have got excellent communication skills, but no knowledge. And such a guru is called a Kanishtha Guru. Okay, so having understood all this, once I go to the guru, what will we do? That we will see in the next class. Let's stop here. Any questions? Okay. Thank you for your patience. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat. Om Namah Shivaya. Thank you for your patience.
Om Namah Shivaya.